Need more energy throughout the day? Looking for a kick to your workout? RockinThatIDLife.com has you covered with delicious flavors you've grown to love in tropical fruit and mixed berry, but now fall in love with the new fruit punch and orange flavors. Try them all at RockinThatIDLife.com.
Realtor Mike Burgoyne with Real Brokerage LLC makes the moving process easier. Work with a realtor who plays and studies the game and will work as hard as the boys on the ice to get you the best deal. Check out Mike on the web at strikewithmike.com and jumpstart your move today. That's strikewithmike.com.
This is Let's Go Blues Radio, and I'm your host, Jeff Ponder. You'll notice I'm all by my lonesome tonight, but that's okay. We got some fun stuff planned. You're not just going to hear me. There's some clips we'll play later. We'll have some fun with this show. Thanks for tuning in this week as we're entering episode 18 of season 12. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by RockinThatIDLife.com, where we help you make every workout, every meal count, do life better. And by Mike Burgoyne of Real Brokerage Realty. Use strikewithmike.com to search properties in your area and contact Mike, who will help put you in your dream home or sell your current home. And by Center Ice Brewery, which serves St. Louis with flavorful hockey-themed beer. Find your new favorite brew at local grocery stores and liquor stores throughout the St. Louis area by checking out their website at centericebrewery.com. This is franchise episode number 427 all time. So for this episode, as I said, we're going to be rolling solo as I couldn't find a good co-host for a good time. Well, unfortunately for me, I've got a men's league game Wednesday night when I would normally be doing the show, but I just thought, you know what, we can just put something out that'll be a coach reveal because there's only one person we're going to be talking about here, so why not just have one person talk about that coach? So we'll get to that in a little bit. Remember, it's between Joel Quenneville, Scotty Bowman, Craig Berube, and Ken Hitchcock for that spot. So we will get to that after the commercial break. But first, a couple news items that are coming. Actually, you know what? Before we get to the news items, let's talk about what drink I have tonight, or today, as I record this during the day. A little Rockin' That ID Life. This is the Pina Colada energy flavor. I don't know if I mentioned Pina Colada on the show as of late, but it is probably my favorite flavor that comes from them. It actually tastes like a pina colada, so it's really cool. I love pina coladas on the beach. I also love it when I'm getting caught in the rain and making love in the dunes of the Cape. So, that's always a good time, too. But try that if you haven't tried it out, the pina colada flavor over at RockinThatIDLife.com. Very good stuff. So, as I said, a couple news items that we'll get to start. The Blues national broadcast, the NHL national broadcast schedule has been released. Surprisingly, for how bad this team might be this season, we don't know. Maybe not that bad. We'll see. They have 13 national broadcasts during the 23-24 season. They're going to be featured on ESPN, ESPN Plus, ABC, and Hulu, as they'll broadcast 8 of those games. And then TNT will feature another 5 of those Blues games. So we'll get that awesome TNT panel. Although I did see on the ESPN side, Chris Chelios is no longer on the panel. He was terrible. And I think I can say that and be confident that most people would agree. First of all, I don't like him just because of the teams he played for. But I thought he just was not a very insightful analyst. Him and Mark Messier, they had a little good back and forth, but for the most part, just felt contrived and just not a fan of them together. So like to see that he's moved on. We'll see if PK Subban steps into a bigger role, if they bring in somebody else. If they have, maybe I've missed it. But either way, so that TNT panel, I'm glad the Blues will be on 5 times with that panel. National game highlights. The first one the Blues will have is November 1st in Colorado. That will be a TNT game. They also have the both matchups against the Detroit Red Wings. So we'll be seeing David Perron, Jake Wallman, maybe Ville Husso if he starts, and the Red Wings. Those will be on ESPN and an ABC broadcast as well. Also, March 2nd at home against Pat Maroon and the Minnesota Wild. For those of you who maybe tune out to NHL news over the summer, yes, Pat Maroon has joined the Minnesota Wild. And plus, they whenever the Minnesota Wild play, we'll see if they have a nice video tribute for Oscar Sundqvist, who spent like 20 games there. So we'll see. April 4th on the road against Ryan O'Reilly and the Nashville Predators. So that should hopefully be a pretty important game. We'll see where the Blues are at in the standings as well as the Predators. Maybe the Blues will be battling for a wild card spot or something at that point, but that is a game that we have talked about going here at Let's Go Blues Radio, heading down to Nashville to catch that game. So we'll see if that's the game we'll be down there for as a national telecasted game. Then the final two games of the season against the Seattle Kraken and Dallas Stars, both will be a TNT broadcast. So we'll be ending the season, at least the regular season, on TNT, which I think we all, again, enjoy. I love the TNT broadcast way better than the ESPN's. So I will enjoy that the season will end with some TNT action. Also important to note that 101 ESPN is going to feature all 82 regular season games on the radio, as you probably knew, but it's nice to get that confirmation that there wouldn't be any weird issues that they'd be broadcast on a different channel for whatever reason. Nice to know for, again, if you're on the road, if you're in the car, always catch Blues games, all 82 of them on 101 ESPN. Bally's is going to release their schedule at a later date. This typically happens, but with the national broadcast kind of getting to pick and choose who they want, and then later Bally's comes out and says, "Yeah, we're picking up all the rest of the games." But with the weirdness going on with Bally Sports right now and the bankruptcy with their parent company, I'm kind of a little nervous. Maybe we're not going to get all games. I mean, I feel like it's 2023. We should be getting all the games at this point, but I don't want to stir up anything if anyone's wasn't concerned about that. Hopefully I'm not starting anything for you, but let's hope there's no issues there. It's just the general, well, now the national broadcasts are out. Here's Bally's schedule picking up the rest of the games. So we'll see when that comes out. Hopefully should be, I would think, in the next week or so. So those are the important dates that we'll be having for national broadcasts. One other important note that we want to get to before we get to commercial and then talk about our head coach reveal. The Blues have signed forward Isaac Ratcliffe to a professional tryout. He is 24 years old, split last season between AHL's Lehigh Valley Phantoms and the Milwaukee Admirals. He had 20 points in that time, 6 goals and 14 assists, and 68 penalty minutes in 47 games. He's appeared in 10 NHL games with Philadelphia, in which he has 1 goal, 3 assists, and 4 points. That's not bad. 4 points in 10 games. That's actually pretty impressive. And he was drafted by the Flyers in the second round, 35th overall, so a high second-round pick of the 2017 NHL draft. This is a depth move. You got to think if he is signed, he's probably an AHL player, but maybe there's something that the Blues see in him. Again, the Blues have some ties with the Flyers organization. Craig Berube being a former coach there, doing some work in I believe, also doing some work in player development for them in the past. And then, of course, who knows? Kevin Hayes. Maybe he said, "Hey, this guy's a free agent. Pick him up. He's pretty good." We don't know. But either way, there are some ties there, you think, with the Flyers organization. So maybe there's a scout. Again, maybe a Berube, maybe somebody saw something in this guy and said, "Hey, he's worth a shot." So we'll see if anything comes of that. Kind of shades of Tyler Pitlick from last year. For those that remember, he was picked up on a professional tryout and then signed after training camp. So to me, it's I think Tyler Pitlick was not expected to be an everyday player. With the injuries that kind of happened and then all the trades, he kind of became that. And I think he was a fine player. None of us on this show had anything negative to say about Tyler Pitlick. But at the end of the day, we said, you're not probably winning a Stanley Cup if Tyler Pitlick is an 82-game player. I think it's the same here with, what's his name? Sorry, Isaac Ratcliffe. I think it's the same thing with him. I think if he plays, maybe the Blues are struggling a bit. Maybe he's outperformed somebody else in training camp, and maybe he's getting his shot. Again, 4 points in 10 games in the NHL is not too shabby. So maybe he does have that Berube mentality of being able to go in on the forecheck and, play some Blues hockey that we'll appreciate. So, doesn't hurt. I always say these professional tryouts, there's nothing that's going to hurt bringing these guys in just to see what they can do. And at the very least, maybe it's a connection of sorts with an Armstrong or, again, a Berube, a Hayes, hey, bring this guy in, give him a chance, and at the very least, maybe he'll be able to sign on somewhere else, and you're giving the guy a chance to come back into the NHL. So, I think we all hope this guy scores 50 goals and 100 points. Not going to happen, but nice to think that there's a chance this guy could step in and be a difference maker for the Blues. Doesn't hurt. Give the guy a professional tryout, see what he can do. Well, when we come back from commercial here, we are going to reveal the head coach for the all-time team, the St. Louis Blues. Let's Go Blues Radio all-time team. So we've revealed all of our rostered players. Next, we have head coach. Next week, we'll do the utility players. There's 3 spots open for that. But we will get to the head coach. So who is going to be leading this ragtag group of Blues players on the all-time team? We will find out on the other side of this break from our awesome sponsors. Stay tuned to Let's Go Blues Radio.
We'll return after these messages.
Every beer league hockey night, I grab my hockey bag and sticks and throw them in the trunk of my car. And the very next thing I do, I mix up a boost of energy courtesy of RockinThatIDLife.com. It's formulated to break up its delivery in 3 ways, which helps me get through all 3 periods of hockey. Phase 1 provides a rapid onset of energy, concentration, alertness, and motivation. By period 2, I'm receiving a dose of sustained energy, increased focus, metabolism, cognitive function, performance, and feelings of well-being, which I need with the way I play. In Phase 3, I'm getting fatigue protection without jitters and crash, an elevated mood, and a reduction of fluid retention to help me make the big play when it counts. This same triphasic approach helps me when I drink it during work hours or simply just for a pick-me-up when I need it. Try one of the 4 energy flavors by visiting RockinThatIDLife.com, but make sure to email Dustin at RockinThatIDLife@gmail.com and tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you to receive an additional 10% off your order. That's RockinThatIDLife.com.
Center Ice Brewery is a beer lover's dream for hockey fans. Based in St. Louis, Missouri, owner Steve Albers has been brewing hockey-themed favorites for thirsty sports fans since 2017. From the Beauty IPA to the Old Arena Lager, a cold, frosty, hockey-themed beer is just what the doctor ordered for hockey fans in St. Louis. Make sure to check your local beer store for Center Ice Brewery beer today. LGB. Let's go beer.
During the magical 2019 playoff run, I was in the midst of buying my current home. Every time I spoke with my realtor, obviously, home buying was the discussion. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't stop thinking about what was destined to happen for our St. Louis hockey team. If only there were a realtor who could have walked me through the process, held my hand when needed, but was there to be a sounding board when I wanted to complain about a certain hand pass goal. Let realtor Mike Burgoyne with Real Brokerage be that for you. He'll have your needs top of mind as he skates you through the home buying or selling process, dangling you past any obstacles and assisting on all your home goals. Check out strikewithmike.com for more information or give him a call directly at 314-753-4060. That's Mike Burgoyne with Real Brokerage at strikewithmike.com, and that number again is 314-753-4060. Don't forget to tell Mike that Let's Go Blues Radio sent you.
And now, back to Let's Go Blues Radio, the longest running St. Louis Blues podcast with Price, Ponder, and Day.
All right, we are back, and yes, it is that time to reveal the 35th year team coach. I'm sorry, the all-time team coach. Just a reminder, the 35th year team coach was Joel Quenneville, and again, at the time, he was the current coach of the Blues, and he was, I believe, he was already the all-time wins leader for the Blues at the time, which he still is. So clear-cut choice back then, but obviously a lot has happened since they released that 35-year team in 2002. So does Joel Quenneville keep that spot, or does it go to someone else? Well, here it is, folks. The coach for the Let's Go Blues Radio St. Louis Blues all-time team is this guy.
Pump it up here. We're here for a fucking reason, because we're a fucking good hockey team, and we're gonna fucking come home with a cup here tonight. Let's fucking go. Sonny, Bo, Perry, Benner, let's go. Let's go.
That's right. Craig Berube gets the nod. He was named the Blues interim coach on November 19th, 2019. November 19th, 2018, after the Blues fired head coach Mike Yeo. He is third in games coached from the St. Louis Blues franchise, 354 heading into the season. If he gets 60 games coached this season, that'll get him sole possession of second all-time in games coached. That means he'll pass Ken Hitchcock. Third in wins right now at 193. If somehow this team pulls out 56 wins this season, that will give him sole possession of second in wins, again, over Ken Hitchcock. He is third in points earned at 429. If he were somehow to get 109 points this season, that will give him sole possession of second, again, over Ken Hitchcock. And for those of you wondering on the math, 109 points, that's about 55 wins. You got to factor in some ties, ties, overtime losses in there as well. So that is probably unlikely for this roster, but we will see. He is third in playoff wins with 24. If the Blues were to go to the playoffs this year and he got 3 more wins, it would give him sole possession of second over, not Ken Hitchcock, Scotty Bowman. And if he were to get 11 wins in the playoffs this upcoming year or the year after, if he's still here, that would put him over Joel Quenneville for first. So 11 more Stanley Cup playoff wins, and he is in first place all time for Blues history. So we'll see if he lasts that long here as a St. Louis Blue. But let's throw all that out of the window and look at the one stat that is most important for coaches. He has 1 Stanley Cup. That is more than any other Blues coach in history can claim. He is the third interim head coach in NHL history to win a Stanley Cup, and that put him in elite company as Larry Robinson, who's a former member of the Blues, a part of that team, and Disco Dan Bilesma are the only others who have won the Cup as an interim coach. On June 24th, 2019, so 5 days after the Blues had won the Cup. Wait, that's not 5 days. A couple of weeks after the Blues won the Cup, June 24th, the Blues dropped the interim tag and named him the 26th head coach in franchise history. So, again, Craig Berube, it's a no-brainer to me. I mean, again, I know that Joel Quenneville, we'll talk about Quenneville here in a minute and some issues that maybe went into why people didn't vote for him. But to me, when it comes to coaching, that Stanley Cup is all that matters. We have talked on this show about how much that Stanley Cup roster meant to this all-time team. How much weight does each player get who was on that team in voting? How much does that play into all of the voting here? And I think for a lot of fans, and we talked to a lot of the panelists, and a lot of them agreed it was important. But I think to a lot of the fans voting on this, I think that is clear-cut. The most important thing for a coach is to be able to win that Stanley Cup. How many times do we hear, I remember a couple of years ago, the Anaheim Ducks, when they were looking for a coach, one of the things that these guys always look for, these GMs look for, we want a winning coach. We want a Stanley Cup caliber coach who has won a cup that's available out there. And that is important, So when, because let's face it, with coaches, it is a matter of when. Craig Berube is let go by the St. Louis Blues or he leaves on whatever reason, that is going to be the number one thing on his resume, and he will get another head coaching job because he has won a Stanley Cup. So that is very important, and I think that's what puts him over the hump here. Plus, it does help that he's had so much success in the regular season as well. Last year being kind of an outlier, but that 2021 year, that was a great year before 2019-2020 before COVID struck. The Blues were having a miraculous year. They were on pace, I believe, to at least finish first in the West, if not first in the entire NHL. So, and then after that, they still had success after that. They've been a playoff team every year under him except for last year, and we'll see what he does this year. He's a quotable guy. He's funny, and he's always on point with his commentary. I always say I hate those in-game interviews with coaches because I'm like, let these guys coach. What are we doing? This is stupid. Like, stop putting a commentator in there with the coach. Let him manage the game. Let him talk to his team. But I will say I did always love the one-on-ones with Panger. He always had some funny jab or like something to end the interview that made us giggle and always made Pang lose it. So just a personable guy. And from what I've heard, I've actually never met him. I've heard he is just the nicest dude off the rink. He's got his tirades of dropping the F-bomb. But from what I've heard, just an excellent guy, knows the game. He coached that 2019 team to perfection. Sure, they started off rough. And I remember we even talked on this show after Yo was fired, and the Blues still could not figure it out. And they just kept rolling Jake Allen out there in goal. And the guy was just, you could tell he was physically exhausted from playing. I think he played a full month without even having Bennington see any time at all. It was like, man, are we going to see another coaching change? Because Berube cannot get this team under control either. Like, usually you got that like little rise up a little bit from your team when the coach is fired. There was none of that to start. And it was like, oh boy, we might see Craig Berube fired this year too. But then the guy, again, we all know what they did in 2019. And when they were playing their best hockey down the stretch in the playoffs, that forechecking style that he implemented, the hard-nosed game plan that worked against all the faster teams. You see these teams that are coming in. Again, I go back a lot to that Toronto game when Toronto was, they had a great roster. They were flying, and the Blues, that was the game. They took the 11-game win streak, which is the longest in franchise history. Just seeing the way they played a fast team like that and be able to just stymie them. And again, yes, Jordan Binnington playing out of his mind helped. But, that team played so well. The forechecking, the way that they could go east to west and then north to south. Or south to north, I guess. It was just so impressive to watch. And, again, we saw it a lot in the playoffs. Dallas was a team that was kind of heavy but also played a fast game. They went 7 games and a couple overtimes with them. But, you could see that style just always apparent, and they were just so good and so much fun to watch. That's kind of the talk now is like maybe, we're seeing a kind of a style shift because we don't have the same players on this roster that we saw in 2019. The Ivan Barbashevs are gone. Alexander Steen's gone. Sundqvist was gone, but now he's back. And even, your top line guys like Ryan O'Reilly and Jaden Schwartz, guys who could get in on the forecheck and make the right play. It's a lot different now. It's a much faster team. It's a younger team. And we don't have those kind of hard-nosed guys. Maybe that's where Ratcliffe steps in. We'll see. But, we got it's a lot more north-south players, I guess, than east-west players. And so that's kind of the question now on Berube. Is he going to be able to implement a style that's going to work for this current roster without the superstar names of Tarasenko and O'Reilly? And obviously, the Petrangelos are long gone. And, we're seeing a shift in this team. So is that same style going to work, or is he going to adjust and implement a new style this year with his new assistant coaches they brought in? We'll see. That remains to be said. So we'll see, what's a good season? That's we're kind of awaiting the verdict on what's coming in this year. What's a good year for Craig Berube with this roster? Does he last this season? How much slack is he given? So that'll kind of weigh into a lot of these. I listed off the franchise numbers for coaches. It just makes you think, like, is this a year that he's going to survive and get to the next year and be able to be that guy that can, still lead this team through the playoffs and get those 11 wins to get him to number one all time. We'll see. I think if this team starts out as an absolute dumpster fire, goes, 2-13-0 in their first, 15 games, I think he's gone. If they're 500 through most of the season, I could see him sticking it out because I don't think there's a whole lot of heavy expectations on this team. And I don't even think it's fully wins and losses that are going to play into it. With him getting the new assistant coaches and with Mike Weber stepping in as a defensive coach, And then Michael Babcock stepping in as well as a more skills guy. Are we going to see a shift in the way they play? If they're losing games 2-1, but it's a great game and they're playing good defense, shots are getting blocked, guys are kept to the outside, and Bennington's playing well because he's been able to see the puck, but they're still losing games just because they got stymied by another goalie or the other defense played them well. Maybe that plays into it as well. If they're losing 5-1, 6-2, something like that, and it's a consistent thing, I think he's gone, unfortunately, because I do like Craig Berube, and I think he belongs in this spot as the all-time favorite coach for the St. Louis Blues. But yeah, it really, I think, depends on how they're losing. And hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they come in and they barnstorm the league. Don't think that's going to happen. But I do think it matters, how are they going to play? And if they're winning games, by a small margin and then still losing games by a small margin, I think he's good. But yeah, if they're getting blown out 6-1 and they go, winless in the first 8 or something, I could see him being let go, unfortunately. So we'll see. A lot of it depends on how these players play with these new coaches that came in under Berube. But I would like to see him stick around. I'd like to see him stick around through this retool rebuild, but that is very uncommon in the NHL, actually all sports, to see a coach last an entire rebuild. So I know they're calling it a retool, but I think fans, it's best if we just go ahead and call it a rebuild. That way we're not putting these crazy expectations. They'll be back in the playoffs next year. But we'll see how they do. But I do like Berube on this team. Now, again, if he doesn't adjust his game plan to meet the type of player on his team, that might be an issue. But he seems like a pretty smart guy. I liked a lot of the things he did last year, to be quite honest, and I didn't like a lot of the things he did last year. So I hope he sticks around, and I'd love for him to be a part of a future all-time team as well if we do this in 10, 15 years again, because I do think he's deserving, and he's been a great coach for this organization. But it doesn't matter, even if he's let go this year, because we've had some great moments with Craig Berube. We'll always have moments like this one I'm about to play, which happened after Tyler Bozak's memorable game winner in Game 5 against the Colorado Avalanche in 2022.
Good job. Right, boy. Ballsy, baby! Great work to that shot, boy. Way to hang in there. Let's go, boys. Way to play your asses off. What a character win. Great job.
So again, Craig Berube, deserving. I love that he's here, and it was probably a little closer in the vote than I would have expected, but I'm glad he came out on top because I think he is very deserving here. Again, that one Stanley Cup, that matters a lot to this franchise and to its fan base. So other candidates that were in the running with him for that Twitter poll, of course, Joel Quenneville, who was that 35-year coach, as well as Scotty Bowman and Ken Hitchcock. So why didn't these guys make it? Well, a couple things that I laid out that I think maybe contributed to it. Scotty Bowman, he is only 7th in games coached in St. Louis Blues history at 238. Maybe he's not here long enough. Maybe people attribute his success more to when he's in Detroit, Pittsburgh, and other places when he was winning cups and coaching some great teams. So maybe it was just a matter of people just saying, I don't really relate Scotty Bowman to the St. Louis Blues, so it's hard to put him in this spot. Joel Quenneville, great coach for his time, but let's face it, as good as he was, he couldn't get a cup with a superstar lineup, with the Prongers, the McKinnises, the Dimitras, the Turgeons. I mean, the list goes on, the Halls even. But again, we've talked about it. Maybe part of that problem, first of all, he inherited a team from Mike Keenan who gutted this team. But he did bring in some good stuff like an Al McInnes and a Chris Pronger. But a lot of it was goaltending. I think that 2000, 2001, both those teams, pointing right at you, Roman Turek. I think if you have another goalie in there that's better in the clutch, I think maybe they get over the hump. But still, at the end of the day, Joel Quenneville couldn't get him out of the second round. And let's face it, we all know about the allegations with the Chicago Blackhawks. If he would have won this, I would have been a little upset just for that reason alone. I've talked about on this show before. I met Joel Quenneville when I was a young up-and-coming hockey player myself, and he gave me so many great words of encouragement. He was the nicest guy in the world, and I held him on such a high pedestal after all that. And when he was fired, I was very upset. As much as it was, I think it was needed at the time for that team. I was really sad to see him go. But having said that, the allegations against him, of him just basically not, or I guess turning the other cheek with the Chris Beach stuff. Kyle Beach. I just can't. I can't support him, and I hope he never gets another job in the NHL because of it. Because as a coach, you are somebody who is relied on to do the right thing, and I don't believe he did. Ken Hitchcock. I don't think he. Well, you make a lot of, and you can make a case for any of these guys, but Ken Hitchcock, and I'll say the positive thing. Bill Day, if you're listening, sorry, buddy, going to talk positively here about Ken Hitchcock. I think he gave this team a jolt when it needed it. Because they couldn't get over the hump into the playoffs. He steps in his first year, mid-year, mind you, gets this team to the playoffs, gets them to the second round even. But then he just couldn't get the team past that next hump into the second round, I feel like. Past the second round. He had the 1 year in 2016 that they did make it to the third round, but San Jose pretty much outmatched them skill-wise. Maybe that's a problem for the GM, but still, Ken Hitchcock couldn't really get them past that next hump of getting into and being a perennial Stanley Cup contender. I think they were a pretender there for a couple years because they had some great defensive play. But at the end of the day, you got to score goals to win in this league, and they just didn't have the offense for it. And it's because, well, one, again, maybe you say the GM, but it's also that they played a very defensive style. And I think after a while that wears thin. And it wasn't working for this team. So he had to go. And again, all coaches are hired to be fired. But at the end of the day, I do think that because he couldn't get them over that next hump, that's why we're not even really fully considering him here, even though he made the poll to be a true, basically he is considered to be one of the best coaches of Blues history. But I put him on maybe even 2 levels down from Craig Berube because he was the one who was able to get them to that next level. Other coaches considered for this, Brian Sutter and Jacques Demers were also had some votes. I know Brian Sutter was very close to being involved in the poll over Ken Hitchcock, but Hitchcock, I believe, got 1 vote more than him. So I wanted to give some love to Brian Sutter as well, who did a great job here in St. Louis. And for me personally, my votes. So again, we were asked to have 3 votes for coaches because Quenneville would already be considered. So I voted for Berube, Hitchcock, and Brian Sutter. Again, weird. When people started voting for Bowman, that was my initial thought was, he wasn't here that long, and I really don't associate the Blues with Bowman that much. So, but yeah, for me, Brian Sutter was a little bit more important to the Blues organization. I know Bowman's the first coach, don't get me wrong. But Sutter, his time here, the teams he coached, he was great. So hard to leave him off this list, but he was very close to being there actually over Ken Hitchcock. But that doesn't matter. What do you think? Do you think Craig Berube belongs in this spot? If you do, if you don't, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Appreciate you guys tuning in for this wild episode of Let's Go Blues Radio. Remember, next week we are going to reveal the final 3 spots for this team, and that includes the 3 utility spots. So that could be 1 defenseman, 2 defensemen, 3 defensemen, 1 center, 2 left wings. Whatever it is, it's 3 completely open spots. So we will see who makes it. Remember, the vote was between, obviously it wasn't going to be 3 defensemen, Barrett Jackman, Brendan Shanahan, Alexander Steen, and Pierre Turgeon. They all made the vote. So one of those guys is going to be left off the team. We'll reveal next week who that was. So make sure you tune in. We'll probably do that one live. We'll see what night. But either way, looking forward to doing that one. Should be fun. So thanks, everybody, for watching. I appreciate it. Remember, next week, tune in. We got 1 more of these. And then guess what? After that, we got 1 more after that of these summer shows. then it's regular season talk. We are almost there, people. We're in September. Almost there. Just stick it out a little bit longer. So thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by RockinThatIDLife.com because it takes one step to beginning your new health journey. Take that step today and visit RockinThatIDLife.com for more information. That's RockinThatIDLife.com and get 10% off by emailing Dustin at RockinThatIDLife@gmail.com and tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you. And by Mike Burgoyne from Real Brokerage Realty. Visit strikewithmike.com today for all your home buying and selling needs. That's strikewithmike.com. And by Center Ice Brewery, St. Louis's tasty hockey-themed beer. Check out centericebrewery.com and navigate to their Where to Find Us page for availability. That's Center Ice Brewery beer. Please drink responsibly. That'll do it for episode 18 of season 12 of the original St. Louis Blues Hockey Podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great week, everyone. For Kurt Price, Bill Day, and producer Austin, I'm Jeff Ponder, and I will talk with you next week. This was Let's Go Blues Radio. Until next time, everyone, let's go Blues. A couple more weeks, regular season, we'll get there.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
You thought I was going to say, son of a bitch, didn't you?